The following podcast is a presentation of the Pulse Podcasting Network and WrestlingWithWrestling.com. Hello everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Six-Sided Podcast. As usual, I'm your boy, the Taxman, and I have a very special guest joining me this week. We have Steven from the Wrestling Estate. Now, if you don't know who he is, Steven is a blog writer for the Wrestling Estate. He mainly writes about Ring of Honor. He does New Japan spots as well, talks some Impact Wrestling, so you definitely want to give his stuff a read. I will be including all of his social media information in the first set of tweets in regards to this episode, so definitely want to check him out. Once again, part of the Wrestling Estate team, you all remember that Jenna, who I had on the program a couple of times, also a provider for the Wrestling Estate, so definitely want to make sure that you go and check out them as well. Also, before I get any further, just want to say if you are listening to us on youtube.com/c/6sidedpodcast that you please hit that bright red subscribe button. Also, you can find this podcast wherever you trade, sell, barter, steal, whatever, invest in your favorite podcasts. The Audio Boom link will be included on the first set of tweets as well for this podcast, but you can find us on iTunes or iPodcast or whatever the fuck it's called. I don't know, to be honest. Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Deezer, Google Podcasts, essentially anywhere that you find a podcast, type it in, Six-Sided Podcast. If you're able to, please rate and review us. That would be tremendous. And most of all, I hope you all enjoy my conversation that I had with Steven, and stick around after because we have some breaking news in regards to Impact Wrestling's distribution network that we're going to cover very briefly. So without further ado, my conversation with Steven from the Wrestling Estate. Boom. Hello everyone, very happy to be joined this evening or this afternoon, depending on what part of the world you're living in, by Steven from the Wrestling Estate. Steven, how you doing, man?
I'm really well, thank you. Really great to be on the podcast and to be doing an international episode. So yeah, I'm great, thank you.
I've had a little bit of across the pond flavor, if you will. I had the guys from Just Because Wrestling there. In international terms, a stone's throw from you in Cork, Ireland, but you're from West Yorkshire, correct?
Yeah, that's the one, yeah.
Okay, so explain to our, we'll say, domestic U.S. fans how the term West Yorkshire comes about.
So in the UK, much like the USA, you've got states on your side of things, which obviously break up the USA into different parts of the country. In the UK, so in England, where I'm from, they're called counties. So my part of the UK, which I'm from, is part of Yorkshire. That's the county I'm part of, or from. And then West Yorkshire is kind of like a sub county. So it's a little smaller county in Yorkshire itself. So I'm from West Yorkshire, but from Yorkshire itself, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like a smaller section of Yorkshire. So it's just kind of like the state thing where, USA is divided into, the states of the USA. It's like the counties of the UK, and that's the particular part of the UK I'm from. So yeah, that's where West Yorkshire is. If you have a look on the map as well on Google Maps, you'll be able to see where West Yorkshire is. It's kind of in the middle, but kind of in the north as well. So it's like we're right in the centre of the north. So like if you imagine like a clock, we're right kind of like at 12 o'clock. So it's kind of quite high up in the UK and England. So that's where I hail from in the UK.
And you are a contributor for the Wrestling Estate, as we covered. So yeah. You mostly focus on blog writing, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, mainly long articles, and we do the roundtable weekly, sort of like community articles as well, where we get given a set of questions from our from our webmaster, John Corrigan, and whether they're topical or sometimes they can be things that have happened in the news. So, like recently, the sad passing of me and Gene Oakland, we had a roundtable based around his career. So it's kind of like a few key questions which we all can contribute to, and they're done weekly. And but yeah, the majority of mine work is normally longer articles and blog posts for the website based around Ring of Honor and New Japan, and then a few other things thrown in there. So yeah, that's what I mainly do for the website.
So the Wrestling Estate, I'm sure most fans of my show will be familiar with that. We've had Miss Jenna on the program a couple of times. She's one of the contributors over there. So yeah, it's nice to have that familiarity, that touchstone between different, we'll say, wrestling platforms. And it's interesting for me, to be able to read somebody's work, then you have them on the program. It's such a different dynamic, physically speaking to somebody. You're able to kind of ascertain different dynamics of their character and what they really think about wrestling. So I'm definitely pleased to have you on today.
That's great, thank you. And yeah, it's great to be able to. I'm looking at branching out into hopefully getting into more podcasts, and I have listened to Six Sided Podcast a few times, and I think it's a great it's a great podcast, especially with. I've always been a huge fan of Impact Wrestling, and the fandom's always been there, but it has tainted due to certain things what have happened in the company. But I am really into the product at the moment, and I did want to come on the show to talk about my fandom and the product at the moment.
Which is exactly what we are going to jump right into. So, we're going to cover the crazy tag match that happened Friday night on Impact Wrestling in just a little bit. That's a little hook for everybody to stay tuned. But so for yourself, and I'm going to preface all of our conversation here because I need to be able to differentiate this for some of our listeners. So in the course of our conversation today or tonight, wherever you are in the world, domestic is referring to United States only. International then covers Canada, Mexico, the UK, India, and everywhere else, essentially across the world that Impact Wrestling is broadcast. It will also encompass the Twitch channel because a lot of that is an international audience as well. So, being that you are not our an international Impact Wrestling fan, what's the viewing experience for yourself like? How do you find the time slot? How do you find the channel that it's on? I understand that it's 5 Spike is the channel in the UK.
Yeah.
So,
that's the one, yeah.
So I'm curious what that channel is like in relation to other major channels in your cable package in terms of broadcasting and how they present themselves as a channel, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, 5 Spike's got a lot of kind of, I'd say it's more kind of the male demographic kind of programs, a lot of them imported from the US. I mean, Channel 5 as a package, as a whole sort of, as a channel, 5 Spike is kind of a small part of that. So they've got 5 USA, they've got 5 Spike. I think there's another 5 as well. I can't remember what it's called. 5 Star, I think it's called. But 5 Spike predominantly is American programming. So Impact nicely slots into that kind of section of programming. So you kind of get things like NCIS. You get the Breaking Bad. They have been showing some Amazon Prime exclusive as well, so they recently showed Vikings as well, which was really cool to see that on TV, on terrestrial television. And Impact's got a great slot as well because it is shown quite late in the evening at 11 o'clock in the evening, but it is on a Friday night. So what's good about it is that if you do want to stay up, like I stayed up the other evening to watch the tag match, that you haven't got to go to, well, a lot of people have to go to work the next day because it's the weekend, so it's great to be able to just, unwind and sit down and enjoy, watching it. And I think it's nice as well that it fits into that USA package as well, so it doesn't feel like it's out of place, because one of the things in the UK is that USA wrestling always kind of feels sometimes that it's out of place on UK channels and on UK networks, but because I think for the way 5 Spike is presented to the viewer and to the consumer, it neatly fits into there. And the guys at the at the Twitter feed as well, which I've had a lot of retweets and things from them. They really sort of have been pushing to get more people to watch it on Five Spike, and it's been really promoted heavily. And I think it's great that it's been able to gain even more viewership, and it hasn't just kind of been lost in the shuffle. So I think it's a really good network for it to be on, and it does showcase it. It's like one of the showcase programs on the channel, which is what I really like about it at the moment, which got me so heavily invested in it last year when like I said, my fandom had been waning. So it neatly fits into where it's presented.
I find it your comment about its placement on a proper channel, and I find that so interesting because you do hear. Obviously everybody knows the criticism domestically that Impact is only available on Pursuit Channel, but when you look at a international market in Canada, we watch it on the Fight Network. Now that's obviously the name tells you exactly what it is. You have UFC, Impact, you also get Explosion, Impact in 60, they have Old Pride events, they show Smash Wrestling, essentially every type of MMA, combat sports, wrestling is there. And for me, you're talking about a perfect network for something to be on, like Impact Wrestling. That's obviously a match made in heaven, if you will. You look at in Mexico, they're on 52X, and that's a big sports package as well. It doesn't feel like it's out of place. Then you move to somewhere like India, where they're on Sony 6. Same thing. It's a lot of that American programming, but it doesn't feel like it's just kind of doesn't feel like it's just slotted somewhere and kind of left there hanging in the wind. These are networks that heavily promote this. You will see, commercials aired for it. Like you said, on Twitter and on social media, these are channels and companies essentially that are very invested in promoting and distributing the product, which I think is a fantastic thing.
Yeah, definitely. And recently we have actually gained a small slot on the channel's called Showcase, where we have actually got the Fight Network actually presented at certain times throughout the week. It's normally around after 7 p.m. in the evening till about 3 in the morning, where they have shown Impact, so repeats of Impact, repeats of TNA pay-per-views. As you pointed out, Explosion. I've been able to watch Smash Wrestling a lot more. It was my first introduction, was the Fight Network to Championship Wrestling from Arizona, because I had watched Championship Wrestling from Hollywood previously on the internet. So the Fight Network as well has been working in conjunction with Spike. I mean, I watch Impact on Spike as it happens, but it's good to be able to have it there for other people on the Fight Network, where again it feels part of a nice package of different combat sports, mixed martial arts and pro wrestling for people to enjoy here in the UK, so it doesn't feel like it's just haphazardly put somewhere in the schedule to try and get it seen by fans.
So another topic that I wanted to touch on quickly, because both of us are really from the international market, is, and this is obviously the hot topic, or hot button topic, I should say, in America especially, is viewership. Now, a lot of people don't understand or realize that in international markets, such as Mexico, such as India, and yourself in the UK, Impact Wrestling actually outperforms the WWE on a weekly basis.
Yeah. A lot of that is down to the fact that the WWE is only available on subscription channels via Sky Sports, or via satellite receivers and sort of like satellite television. So you essentially have to pay to watch Raw, SmackDown, NXT, much like the WWE Network. It's been like that for many years, and we used to have a Sky Sports package in our home, but due to me falling out of love with WWE quite a bit and not wanting to invest, at one point I was investing around 12 hours a week watching wrestling, and when I wasn't enjoying the product, I decided to just focus on Ring of Honor, Impact, and the Indies, because they were cheaper and they were a lot more easy to watch. So Impact, thankfully, is able to be seen on free terrestrial television, which is one of the big marketing ploys they use, and it does really work, because like if you just want to dip in and out of Impact, for example, like I did at the start of last year before I started watching it again weekly, it was good because I was just able to see the certain matches which I wanted without having to either pay for them via the network like WWE, or having to pay for a subscription like Sky Sports to be able to then catch up with what had been seen. And it's good because it allows, much like if you're going to make for the demographic, not just the male demographic, but with like families and who have access to terrestrial television, it allows a lot more kids to see a lot more impact than what they would do with. Although WWE is always the main promotion here in the UK in terms of like marketing, so like in terms of the like the action figures and the video games and the home videos. It's good because Impact is there to be able to be seen. It's not like, again, it's not hidden away, and because it's available for free on terrestrial television, it means people haven't got to pay to actually see something they want to see and want to enjoy. So it does have a big impact, I think, especially in recent years. I think it's had a big impact on the the way people view, especially me anyway, the way people view WWE and TNA and how Impact TNA, the business models they've got and how they engage with the fans. So I mean, yeah, I like it. I mean, is it kind of the same in Canada where you have to pay to watch WWE and the rest of the WWE programming, or is it kind of available a lot more readily than Impact?
So for myself, my cable provider is Shaw, and I'm in Winnipeg, Manitoba, essentially dead center of Canada. My cable package to watch WWE would be an add-on that would be on Sportsnet 360. It's kind of the same concept as what you're describing. So there's Sportsnet by region, so Ontario, Quebec, West, and BC or whatever they call it. And then essentially there's Sportsnet 360, which encompasses everything, and that's an add-on. So for myself, not that I watch the WWE anyway, so it's not for me a big loss. But the Fight Network, because it's a Canadian broadcasting company and because they produce so many hours of Canadian content, they are actually included in my cable package. Now, I'm not sure how it works for other large cable providers. In Canada, you would have Shaw, which I have. There's Rogers, there's Bell, MTS, and in Saskatchewan, there's Sasktel. They kind of run that whole province. But Shaw itself has a network or a cable provider reach of something ridiculous, like 20 million homes or something.
Wow.
In American numbers, not so big, but when you factor in, there's only, I believe, 38 million people in Canada, and if you're you have a cable provider reaching 20 million of that, then there you go, right? So
yeah, wow.
For myself, and I had fallen out of all wrestling, period, for a long part of time, because for a lot of it was the WWE or nothing until TNA came around in 2002. Then that was something I was watching from that 2004 to like 2008 era. In 2008, I was so blown up from wrestling. See, I had gotten into wrestling when it was the WWF and WCW, and we used to get WWF. The Monday Night Raw was airing live on Mondays, obviously, on TSN. Yeah. And then when I would come home from school on Tuesday, that's when they would air WCW Nitro. So I was able to watch both programs at the same time.
Yeah.
Which was the big thing back in the day. Clearly is nowhere near the case. I don't have the time or patience or want to watch that much anymore. But I find it so interesting, just you're talking about viewing habits between different international markets, and the similarities between Canada and the UK is just, it seems funny to me, and maybe it is because we're that international market rather than domestic. They kind of maybe forget about us a little bit.
Possibly. I think also it's just, I don't know, with one good thing about Impact, I think, is that they've always had a good UK base, I think. I mean, one of the articles, my first article I wrote for the Wrestling Estate, where I talked about how I got into independent wrestling, and at that time I classed Impact as independent wrestling, was through just hidden. I keep going onto this topic, but hidden away in the schedules because WWE had such a massive monopoly over, the sort of wrestling market as a whole after the demise of ECW and WCW. So I'd heard of ECW, I'd watched WCW on, again, a bit like with TNA now, on terrestrial television, and the WWF I'd seen through friends because we didn't have a satellite TV at that point, but I was able to see it through video, VHS, and through sort of brief points and when it was on terrestrial television. And I think the WWE, the problem is that when they do come, it's a bit better now because they've got NXT UK, but the problem is that again is that monopolising of the independent scene here in the UK. It's like, I don't really know if they really know how to gauge. Well, I wouldn't say how they know how to gauge with the international audiences, but I think they look at it through the USA kind of figures and through the USA sort of viewership sort of trends and sort of what the USA viewers would do. Because I mean, here in the UK, like I said, when I found at the time it was the Wrestling Channel, then became the Fight Network before it disappeared and came back again recently. At that point then I was hooked onto TNA, Ring of Honor. They even showed some really old stuff like Wrestling at the Chase from back in the 70s with early Harley Race and Ric Flair matches, which was phenomenal. And you'd get to see stuff like CZW and FMW and Noah from Japan, and it was like, although it was only a small team, even at that point when social media was kind of just growing, I remember they had a forum, and I remember people being so active on that forum. And I feel like the UK and maybe the international sort of providers of pro wrestling kind of have more of a gauge of what the fans actually want, whereas I think WWE, because the majority of them are the company who put out the television are based in the USA, I think they look at it kind of from where they are over to the UK, whereas they don't really look at it from a UK or an international perspective and see what the fans are actually doing as, in terms of like viewing sort of habits and the way they view wrestling as a whole, really, because I just devour everything. I'm not one of these people who sticks to one promotion, because I just like to learn about different promotions and learn about different wrestlers and styles, and it's more exciting that way, I always find. I mean, that could be the same in Canada, I don't know, but that's just what I feel it's like here in the UK. I mean, do you agree with that, or is that a different sort of view to what you expected?
No, I agree with that. Myself as well, I enjoy watching different wrestling companies. That's why I really enjoy what Impact is doing with the one night only specials, where they're partnering with companies like Smash, like when they did the Super Show with Lucha Underground last year. It exposes me, and I don't have a whole lot of free time, unfortunately. 2 kids and work and hockey kind of kill me on that one, but when I'm able to catch these programs, I get exposed to different wrestlers, different styles. More importantly, that I'm used to seeing on just regular television, and to me that hooks me as a viewer. You're giving me a reason to watch, right? It's not there. It's not just put out there and said, oh hey, look at us, right? It's giving you a reason to tune in. It's giving you a reason to want to watch. Which is another topic I'm going to break into here. So, we've been talking a lot about cable providers, how, you and I kind of watch Impact Wrestling in our respective countries. Now we have the Twitch channel, which I thought was really interesting because you're able now to service a sizable market share of people who may otherwise have never tuned into the program, now have that option to tune into it. And I truly find that you're starting to see the results of that, not just in terms of raw viewership, but in terms of social media presence. And last week I had Trent from We Talk Impact on the program, and we were talking about how Impact's done a really good job of promoting their social media footprint. How do you lure people in? How do you retain attention? How do you give them something they want to see? How do you essentially make them tune in? Well, you give them differing product, and you give them, a Canadian style of wrestling that you see from guys like Petey Williams, for example. You give that American style of wrestling that you'll see from guys like Eli Drake, right? You give the hardcore audience something to sink their teeth into with guys like Sami Callihan. Then you have the luchador style with the Lucha Brothers, which we're going to touch on later in this episode. You know, to me, you're really seeing a large demographic of the international audience kind of touched on in Impact Wrestling, and that's really, I think, what's going to set them apart. They started to establish it in 2018. Trent and I had talked about how it usually takes upwards of 2 years before you start to see the results of your work that you put in. So, you know, we'd be looking at that 2020 mark. But, man, we're in February of 2019, and everybody's been talking about the quality of the television programming, which is only a good sign for Impact Wrestling as far as I'm concerned.
Definitely. I mean, I completely disengaged with Impact altogether. I mean, as a fan, I mean, I agree as well that you know, it's such a at the moment it's such a rounded product, and it's what I've wanted to see from Impact for a long time. It is an alternative to the WWE, and it always felt like a lot of people gave them a lot of you know, harsh criticism for trying to be WWE number 2 or like WCW ripoff and all this.
Yes, and yes.
Impact has always had its own identity, and it was formed by the X division, by having a amazing tag team division from guys like, which I think sometimes gets overlooked by the X division, but they had guys like, one of the things what got me hooked into Impact was actually was America's Most Wanted, who I think are at the time one of the best tag teams in the world, and you know, comparing that with WWE at the time, it was like, you know, it was just something completely different. You know, it was like proper tag team wrestling, which is what I wanted to see after, say, like post SmackDown 6 era, so sort of 2000, sort of like mid 2003 maybe you might say. But Impact has just now, thankfully, it's got back to being its roots. You know, it's got back to the four, although this is called the six-sided podcast, you know, you've got a four-sided ring where guys are going in there, and girls, women, and they're having great matches, they're given time, you know, everything's paced out really well. Everything, you know, you've got Don Callis on commentary, and he's helped Josh Matthews to grow, much like the Nigel McGuinness and Kevin Kelly relationship in Ring of Honor. You can tell that Josh Matthews needed that other person with him to, you know, to keep him in check. But he is a really good announcer, and I think they've been able to finally find their identity after such a long time. And Impact is I go by the fact that Impact is such a strong program for those 2 hours, and I watch it once a week. I would much rather watch 2 hours of Impact, which I wholly enjoy, than have to sit through, you know, 6 hours of, if I chose to, like I used to do, 6 hours of WWE just for the sake of it, or plus, you know, including stuff like, you know, main event, 205 Live. I mean, it's upwards of like 10 hours a week of WWE programming, but only within that see a small portion of what I actually want to watch, and where it actually is focusing around, you know, everyone in the company, which is what Impact is doing so well. It's like you said, it's got the Lucha Brothers who are doing the Lucha Libre style. It's got the hardcore style of Sami Callihan. You know, you've got the UK style of at the time Grado, who was bringing the humour to the company.
Well, and Joe Hendry as well brought that.
Joe Hendry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say Joe Koff, but again, like but yeah, Joe Hendry. And you know, it's such a, and it's not like it's overkill. It's not like they're trying to fit too much into an hour. I mean, you know, it's and I think the other thing which I really like about Impact is just that, you know, I think the one thing which has struck out to me, and in terms of the international base as well, is that you know, they've been running shows in realistic venues. They've actually gone out of the Impact zone, and they've found amazing venues to run the shows, like up in Canada, where they I can't remember the name of the venue, but it was such a awesome experience to watch on TV. You know, I wish I'd have been there live to see some of the matches in Canada, and then recently back down in Mexico, which is something new and fresh for the company, but also for the fans. And that's something, and all the venues look different, all the presentation looks different, and it feels fresh and exciting. Whereas with WWE, it was actually during one of my favourite programs on YouTube, or YouTube shows, was Joe Gagney's Fun Time Pro Wrestling, where he said, it was when he was talking about one of the video games where due to the actual staging of WWE, apart from having the name of the state or the name of the location at the beginning, it wouldn't matter if it was in New York, if it was in Texas, if it was in Las Vegas, because it always looks the same. All the venues look the same, all the presentation looks the same. Whereas at the moment in Impact, I like the fact that you can see the difference and the crowds react differently, and it's really fun, and it does feel like an international company, which is really exciting. But it hasn't lost its USA roots as well, which I think is really fresh and again, exciting for wrestling fans to watch on TV and in the venues.
The Rebel Complex is the one that you were talking about. That was the tapings in Toronto. That was also where Slammiversary was held, which, and I've said that a bunch of times. Slammiversary for me was hands down the best pay-per-view in 2018 in terms of performance and structure, and you hit the nail on the head that Impact Wrestling is giving you 2 hours of television that you want to tune into, rather than spoon feeding you 6 hours and you're tuning out 90% of it.
Yeah.
What's better, right? So
yeah.
To me, they've done such a great job of putting such great matches and storylines on television that draws you in to watch that, right? Then it makes you want to tune into the pay-per-view. Then it makes you want to, check out afterwards and maybe go on YouTube. And we're going to talk about social media numbers in a little bit as well. But all of these, little steps that they've been doing, and a lot of this is, it seems so obvious to us outsiders. But when your feet are in the fire and you're in a quote unquote sinking ship company, as they were deemed in 2017, it's hard to kind of change course and redirect the ship. But changes like you have said have made a world of difference. I totally agree with you that Don Callis has really, really brought out the best in Josh Matthews. He needed a little bit of direction, and he needed to be a little less of JR, right? Yeah. And I really have been impressed with him in his partnership with Don Callis. Just little things like that, they add up, right? So you have the commentaries on point, right? Then you have the matches, the television matches are on point. Now you have storylines that are running deep. You have the fantasy element with the Su Yung, Dark Alley, Rosemary triangle, right?
Yeah.
There's all of these overlaying, underlying, and overlapping premises, storylines, characters, etc. Just it gives you television that, like you said, you want to tune in and you're invested in that 2 hours. You're not, hitting the channel changer button to see what else is going on a different channel.
Yeah, and I mean the other thing with Impact as well is that it's just it's very hard to look and see how. It's really like 2017. It must have been so hard to try and come up with something fresh and exciting, given the fact that it had such a rocky few years and it was just losing its identity all the time. And then you had Jeff Jarrett coming back in, and it became GFW and all that fiasco, and the different changings of the logo and the different changings of the announced teams, and trying to run out of the Impact Zone, but then they weren't able to sustain themselves. And you hear the jokes on social media about how they couldn't even afford lighting bills, so that's why all the fans were dark. And it was really. And it was really rocky, but I feel now they finally have been able to, get rid of the skeleton. Well, sorry, get rid of the shadows. What were overhanging Impact before, and they really have been able to, reinvent themselves. And also one thing I really like about Impact now at the moment, which they haven't done probably since it started, I would say, or just a few years in, is that I sometimes watch and I kind of look to see how many former WWE stars and WWE personnel are actually in Impact, because for years it was kind of just like the holding place for all of the people, like Booker T.
It was a retirement home. It legitimately was.
It was, yeah. Whereas now, apart from you've got I'm trying to think. There was Scott Steiner who came on the other week, from what I remember, and you've got Johnny Mundo, Johnny John Morrison, who was in WWE, and you had Austin Aries, but they didn't hit their potential while they were in WWE, and it's great that they've been given the grounding to be able to hit their potential in Impact and be able to reinvent themselves. I mean, especially Austin Aries. I mean, getting back to Slammiversary, his match with Moose was phenomenal, and I thought the match between him and John Morrison, Johnny Impact at Bound for Glory, I thought that was just, I mean, it was a bizarre match in one sense in that you didn't know if it was a shoot or if it was a legit. Yeah. You know, but that made it exciting. You could see how excited the crowd were. I mean, John Corrigan, who's our webmaster at the website, he was in the front row. You know, he was there and he said it was amazing, you know. So it's great that they haven't got the WWE kind of, you know, sort of shadow overhanging them now. They are something fresh and different. They're putting on, they're bringing out new stars, and they're bringing out, you know, they're promoting their own talent rather than just picking up the, you know, the left-offs from, you know, the WWE who get released and then quickly get, you know, picked up. You know, it's exciting.
The one name I want to mention, because you brought up that fact, is Rich Swann, who was you know, the Cruiserweight champion So when he won the X Division title at Homecoming, I saw not a lot, but a small, you know, groaning of fans saying, "Oh, here they go putting it on an ex-WWE guy again." But if you're talking about wrestlers' trajectories after WWE, Rich Swann is like the poster boy for like what you can do like outside of that company, right?
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
Let's be honest here. Who watched him as a cruiserweight? Well, like, and I'm not, you know, knocking the cruiserweights, but they don't promote that brand to any extent as to anything else they do. Not NXT, not the UK, not anything, right? So realistically, did you have 5% of that viewing audience, and I'm talking about the WWE viewing audience, who were familiar with Rich Swann, and then in that audience, how many were able to actually sit down and watch his matches? But even going back to, you watch his matches in WWE versus what he's doing, his style that he's wrestling at Impact, it's fucking night and day, man. Like, it's incredible.
It is. I mean, now, it was great at Bound for Glory as well when, you know, Willie Mack, who I originally saw back in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla back in 2012, who then sort of has made his name down in the independents, part of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and then became part of Lucha Underground. You know, they're a great tag team, and that opener I actually preferred Bound for Glory. I thought Slammiversary was an amazing pay-per-view, but Bound for Glory for me just pipped it to the post slightly with just a couple of other, just some of the matches and the venue. I think for me, surprisingly, I actually just preferred it. But the opener between Willie Mack and Rich Swann versus Matt Sydal and Ethan Page.
What a great match.
Amazing. It was just, and, you know, two former WWE guys, you know, in Matt Sydal and, you know, Rich Swann, who were just out there and were just doing their style and being shown as, you know, credible wrestlers and not being, you know, thrown to the side and not being overlooked, you know, prominent spot on the card as well, the opener, to get people hyped up, but it didn't feel like you know, sometimes WWE openers can be kind of, you know, it's the place where I put the smaller guys to get everyone kind of excited. It was, you know, it was just a brilliant tag match. And, you know, you are right that nobody, including me, because I'd seen Rich Swann back in Dragon Gate USA and Evolve back in, you know, the early 2010s. When he came to WWE, or when he went to WWE, sorry, I didn't, you know, pay any real attention to him because I don't feel he was given that opportunity to be sort of showcased to his best ability. But now that he's left and he's gone into Impact, it's just been the best decision for him in terms of his character, in terms of his work, and in terms of, you know, reigniting his career after, you know, leaving WWE. So I completely agree. You know, I think he's a great X Division champion. And again, I'm really excited to see what other great matches he can have, you know, against the roster of Impact.
So we've covered, you know, naturally how we view Impact, the differences and similarities between our viewing habits in our respective countries, and I want to talk about the direction that Impact has gone in 2019 so far, and this is where we're going to be touching on Friday night's events. So I'm curious, coming out of Homecoming, what was your kind of thoughts? What direction did you want to see the company going? And so far, have they been able to meet your expectations about a month and a half past Homecoming?
Yeah. I won't lie, the heavyweight title scene has kind of lost me a little bit. I really wanted Brian Cage to win the world title at Homecoming. I felt it was his time after holding the X Division title and being kind of like the Goldberg kind of beast where he was taking everybody down, and I feel he's got a crazy great look. I mean, it's like just an unbelievable look to his physique, and I feel the fans were really behind him. And I'm not the biggest fan of Killer Cross. I really like Moose. I mean, I've seen Moose in Ring of Honor, and I think Moose is brilliant. But Killer Cross, there's just something for me with him which I just can't. He reminds me of Nathan Jones. I just can't get past that for some reason. And although I know he's a great wrestler, I just can't. I don't know. I find it a bit too cartoony for my tastes. But I'm really excited to see what will happen with the actual storyline is quite intriguing. So I am interested to see what will happen and where Brian Cage will. I hope Brian Cage does win the title, and I hope that him and Johnny Impact, Johnny Mundo, Johnny Morrison are able to have
Johnny Blackcraft, Johnny
Johnny Nitro,
yeah.
Back in the day. I hope they're able to have another great match. The tag team scene is just on fire. I mean, I'll talk in that in more detail, but the tag scene is really hotting up, and it's really exciting me. The Eddie Edwards storyline, it is intriguing, and I am enjoying it, but at the same time, I kind of can't. Again, it's slightly edging on the cartoony a little bit, but I am enjoying Eddie Edwards going for a different direction with his character. And, him and Moose have had some awesome matches.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Eddie's a phenomenal wrestler anyway. I mean, he reminds me a lot of... he was trained by Killer Kowalski, so he's obviously going to have those basics nailed down, but he does remind me a lot of Hiroshi Tanahashi in that he just... The way he sells and the way in the ring, the way he works... Just the little things, a lot like Ricky Steamboat, the crispness of the way he works, and even though he's playing this crazy character, the way he portrays that craziness, it's just on a different level than what I was expecting, because he tried being a heel, and his promos have vastly improved, so I really enjoy seeing him not in the ring as well. I really like seeing his promos, and I think he's great. And with OV and Sami Callihan, I just think Sami Callahan's he's phenomenal. He's another guy who, he was in NXT, and I wanted to, ring Sami Callihan up at the time and say, don't go to WWE because they literally will not know what to do with you.
And that's exactly what happened.
And he's not a WWE guy. There are some people who aren't for WWE, and Sami Callihan is one of those guys. But he again left, and he worked his way up from the indies again, and he's got his spot in Impact, and his work with Jake and Dave Christ has just been on fire. And the recent storyline as well, incorporating Rich Swann, and their relationship back in the days on the indies. I like how Sami Callihan is able to inject himself into different. He's been so good at getting into so many different feuds with so many different wrestlers, but making each of them not just feel like he's there. It's like he's got a reason to be there, and his intensity in the way he talks, and the intensity in the way he works in the ring, and he's just on another level. And I think he is probably, as he won Wrestler of the Year, I actually think he was.
Yes, he was. Yeah.
For Impact. And it's really exciting to see what's going to be happening with that Rich Swann and Sami Callihan feud. And in the female division, with Sue Young and Jordan Gracie coming in, that's great. And the Tessa Blanchard situation where she was suspended and then just come back. Tessa Blanchard is another one like Sami Callihan, who again has been able to inject herself into so many different feuds with so many different female wrestlers, and she holds that championship like a real, like Triple H used to hold the world championship. She reminds me a lot of that back in 2000 and 2005 and 2004 on Raw, where it's like her life. And I love that about her, in that she's a bit like in WWE, but you feel the credibleness of her being the knockouts champion, and she's such an incredible, I mean, her dad Tully Blanchard was, amazing, and she just takes after her dad, much like Charlotte and Ric Flair, in that she's just, I mean, I'd really love to see them two go at it someday. That'd be a dream match, Charlotte, especially now, Charlotte Flair and Tessa Blanchard. It'd just be, amazing, and she just seeing where she'll go with the Knockouts Championship's exciting, and I mean, seeing Ethan Page get his, he's been separated from Matt Sydal. I've been a massive fan of Ethan Page for years as well, and it's great to see him get a prominent spot in Impact as well, and see if he can, get his, singles push what I think he deserves. I think he'd be a great contender for, the World Championship at some point, because he's such a great heel. And same with Eli Drake. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of Eli Drake. He just isn't my sort of cup of tea. But he's a great heel because of that. So I don't like Eli Drake, but that's one of the reasons. That's one of the things what makes a great heel, is that you don't like somebody, and he's probably the best heel, sort of like straightforward, classic North American heel in the company. Because Sami Callihan's kind of got more of that edge to him, which I think makes him kind of like the cool heel. So I'm just really, really excited to see what will come from 2019. I think it's going to be, the groundwork was set last year in 2018, and I feel that this year, if they keep with that momentum, then they could go even further, into, sort of areas of the business what they've not even been able to get to before. So I am really, really, excited to see what will happen across 2019.
Which brings us to kind of our, we'll say, main event of the show tonight, and what I'm really interested to discuss with you is the match that everybody is talking about from Friday night. Lucha Brothers, LAX. I thought that their match at Homecoming was incredible. Jesus. Like, I'm legitimately speechless. If anybody is not familiar with the backstory, and shame on you if you're not, but if anybody is not familiar with the backstory, so Conan is kind of the intermediary between these two, we'll say, sets of tag teams. So he was with LAX. He's the OG of LAX, if you will, and
the granddad of LAX.
Yes, exactly. So he was their manager. The new incarnation, Santana and Ortiz. They had a series of matches leading to a blow-off match, or what we thought was a blow-off match, at Homecoming between LAX and the Lucha Brothers. That's Phoenix and Pentagon Jr. And that tag team match at Homecoming was, I would say that was probably my match of the night on that card. And I was like, okay, they're going to let this thing cool off. Maybe we'll see something at Slammiversary. Maybe something at Bound for Glory later on in the year. But nope, they come almost right back to it in a month and fucking blow the doors off. Oh my god. Okay, so I want to, first off, because I'm kind of falling all over myself here, I think everybody knows my position on the match, but what did you think of the match? What have you thought of the build? And just take it away, man. What did you think of that match?
Oh, I thought it was amazing. I mean, that was like, I started watching wrestling back in 1999, but I avidly started watching it in 2002, as I said, during the height of SmackDown 6, so which was all about, which is where my love for tag team wrestling comes from. That was up, and I use that as a benchmark for tag team wrestling, because it was just so amazing. And I mean, the match between Edge, Rey Mysterio, Kurt Angle, and Chris Benoit was just like amazing. That match I saw on Impact, I think actually topped how good that match was, because it was just from the opening bell, the intensity, the crowd, the entrance of the Lucha Brothers, which I thought was awesome, with the dragons, and
yes,
Phoenix with his PWG style, because he did it in PWG, put on Pentagon's face paint as well with his mask. It was just a big deal, and it just it was just incredible. I mean, you could hear it in Don Callis and Josh Matthews there in the building on commentary as well. Just how, it was just a huge event. Conan on ringside as well. I noticed halfway through the match he actually took his sunglasses off as well just to watch this match. I mean, he had the best, seat in the building, just there at ringside to watch these four amazing athletes go at it, and it was just the innovation of the maneuvers, the crispness of the sort of double teams, the speed they went at. It was just balls to the wall for like 15 minutes, and I was just so disappointed there was a commercial break, because I just wanted to watch the whole thing without a commercial break, because it was just so good. And it's like, that's what I watch wrestling for. I mean, I tweeted. I'll just come off. I've got Twitter open at the moment, so I can actually give you the figure, because I did want to put this on. I'll actually read my tweet verbatim. I've watched wrestling for 20 years, and the LAX versus Lucha Brothers tag team match from Impact on Spike, so our channel in the UK, was one of the top 5 tag matches I've ever seen. Those 4 guys are the best in the industry right now, and proved it in Mexico. Please, everyone, do one thing and watch it. And like, it's got 32 likes and 12 retweets, and it's like, it's just, you need to see it. It's just, words cannot do, it's one of those things where words cannot do justice just to how good this match was. It was just unreal, absolutely unreal, and it was just amazing, simply amazing. That's all. I mean, I don't know what else I can say more on it other than just go out and watch it, because I could talk about it till the cows come home, but literally just go out and watch it. It deserves to be seen. It deserves all the accolades it's getting, and they just they show what tag team wrestling. I mean, one of the things what irritates me more than anything in WWE is that the tag teams just always feel thrown together. They always feel, there's no backstory, but this had an amazing backstory after following the LAX and OG storyline last year. Came into it, the promos were all awesome between, Pentagon as well, to say he's not an English speaker. The promos he cuts in Mexican, which have the subtitles on what he's actually saying, so engaging, the presentation of the promos. Just absolutely, and like you said, Homecoming was something. I thought that was amazing. And then this, on Friday evening, was just absolutely incredible. It just, that's why we watch pro wrestling, in my opinion. When people say why, it's because just watch this match and you will see why. It was just out of the park. So that's what I think about that, and I could go on and on till forever. It was just awesome.
So you touched on a bunch of points here that I wanted to bring up, so I'm glad you did. So the first one, and I don't want to get too. If anybody's listening to my program, I really try not to be that kind of negative person, but just to your point about WWE, the tag division ever since early 2000s has just been an afterthought. It's, everything's kind of thrown together. They're there, right? They're often the pre-show. Yeah. There's no real significance to it. So now you come into a situation in Impact Wrestling, and this ties into another point that you made when you were talking about Tessa Blanchard as champion. You're talking about Brian Cage as a champion. You're talking about Rich Swann as a champion. You're talking about people who make a championship. Do you know what I mean? Rather than, they're the champ. There's such a huge difference. And when you have a match between two combatants where the title means something, it just adds that much more. And that's another, piece of this puzzle and piece of the story that, like, these two teams, we know they have respect for each other. They've established this through the storyline, like I said, with Conan, and especially coming out of Homecoming, which I thought it was such a great way after that match where all four of them just showed that mutual respect in the ring, right? That's where I thought maybe they're going to let this simmer for a little bit, and kudos on them for not, but it just, you can have a match with two teams that respect each other, but the titles mean more than that respect, right? Yeah. And that's like, you have a situation in Impact Wrestling with the tag division where teams want to be the tag team champs, right?
Yeah.
They're not just there. They're, you don't just have OVE floating in the background, and you don't have, KM and Falaba just there. People are invested in them because they want to be the champs, right? People are invested in LAX because they're one of the top tag teams in the world.
Yeah.
And they were fantastic champs. You have people invested in the Lucha Brothers, who, once again, are one of the top tag teams in the world, who are going to be incredible tag team champs and really torch bearers and carry that division forward. There's a lot of times where you kind of feel like your tag team champs are anointed by the company to be anointed. Then you have a situation like this where you have tag team champs that the fans fucking want these guys, right? Like, there's a big divide in the fans, and it's a good divide, right? This isn't a negative whatever, but there are fans that were heartbroken that LAX aren't, right? And there's fans that are over the moon that the Lucha Brothers are, but that's when you have lightning in a bottle. That's where you have the crowd so engaged that they care so deeply about these tag teams, about these titles, and about this division and it's not a negative divide, like I said, but it's such like, you just go on Twitter and it's like, or even, I heard I didn't watch it on Twitch, but I heard the chat room was insane. Just like, people were losing their minds, both on the quality of the match, on the title change, on everything about it. Just was like, we can't believe this was on, television.
Yeah. Just, that was the other thing, was that this was free for this was free. You could watch this for free, and, that's what television wrestling should be. It's not cheapening the product, so then you're leading to a pay-per-view every month. They struck while the iron was hot. They went further, they went above and beyond what they'd done in the last match, and that's a big, that's a big ask given what they did. And also,
oh my God, was it ever?
I know, and they're in Mexico as well, which is, both teams, have affiliations, and Conan as well in, Mexico, due to the traditions of Lucha Libre. It was a Lucha Libre. It was a celebration of Lucha Libre tag team wrestling. For the next match, if it was me booking it, and if I had to do it, I would want it to be traditional 2 out of 3 falls, to go even further, the traditional Lucha style, just to see what else they could do if they do go further again. But it was just like I said, I'm kind of speechless at the same time, but it was just such a beautiful experience to watch, because it's what and I think as well, in terms of Impact as a company, it's kind of, excuse me, that they're getting all this shit for all these years, they're getting all this stuff thrown at them, they're getting all this negativity, and they're not going to be in business and everything, but this is like where they said to people, this is what we're going to produce, and this is what we're able to do. Not like WWE, not like Ring of Honor, not like, New Japan or, AEW, which is coming up. This was an Impact match, and they proved that they deserve to be a company which presents pro wrestling. And this was a celebration of international pro wrestling, because you've got 4 international guys, Mexican Lucha Libre, Latin American stars, main event in a TV show, that never get seen on WWE programming, or even like in New Japan, it wouldn't happen, but they're breaking a glass ceiling, and it was such a beautiful experience to be able to watch it and share. I think everyone's sharing it as a fan base, and it was just, it needs to be seen, as many people, I will promote this match to the end of time. This needs to be seen, not now, but it needs to be seen now, but in the future as well. Just go out after finishing this podcast, go out of your way and watch that match, because believe me, if you don't agree with me, then I'll be surprised, but you can get back to me on Twitter. But just watch it, just watch it. That's all I have to say about it now. Brilliant.
Yeah, I'm clearly in the same boat as you. Like, you almost hit a certain point in matches where you almost can't say anything, because you don't do it justice, right? And we've had that a few times in 2018, like the Sami Callihan and Pentagon Jr. match from, like, when I reviewed that show, I couldn't even say anything else, because it's like, what more context can you put anything in that would get this thing over more than it is, and you just get to a point where you can't. But yeah, I love your point as well, that you won't see that international flavor in a tag match as a top spot on almost any other major company. For sure not New Japan or WWE. Ring of Honor, maybe. Although they don't have as much of a huge international footprint outside of their New Japan stars. And maybe MLW is another one that you could say might go for that. But just the fact that they were like you said, struck while the iron is hot, they went for it, they managed somehow impossibly to outdo themselves from Homecoming is just, man. And now, not only was that match incredible, but now you want to see what happens next, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And, we're coming in up to next week, which is another, it's not a one night only, but we'll call it like a special episode of Impact Wrestling. I'm just trying to pull up the name here because I can't remember it right off.
Is it Uncaged?
Yes, it is Uncaged, right?
Yeah.
So, matches that we have here are Ethan Page, who we just talked about, versus Willie Mack. We have Tessa Blanchard versus Taya in a street fight. We have Team Lucha Libre versus Team Impact in a World Cup match. We have, our big main event title picture, Brian Cage versus Killer Cross versus Moose versus Johnny Impact, Mundo, Morrison, Blackcraft, Nitro. Whatever. But, right, like, you just, like, you're building so much goodwill with the fans coming out of a television taping, right? Like this, it's incredible. Like you said, how can you almost not want to watch this and root for this company? I know there's always going to be the trolls and all that kind of nonsense bullshit, which I really try and stay out of on Twitter, because once you get sucked down that negative vortex, man, you're in free fall. It just never ends. But for wrestling fans who want to watch wrestling, you couldn't have said it any better than you did. Like, a wrestling fan, this is what you want to watch. This is the best showcase of what makes wrestling great, is this match, and that's, if there's no other reason to watch it, that's your reason.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll get on with the same comment as well. I'm not a hater of WWE. I love the WWE. I just hate some of the things the WWE are doing, and the oversaturation of the product, and the like you said, spoon feeding as the product. What I love about Impact is that it's, again, this 15 minutes or 20 minutes of wrestling, like, I could, it was just, I don't know how you can compare that with, it was just so perfect in so many different ways, and it was just so, it wasn't trying to insult your intelligence, it wasn't trying to, be funny or trying too hard. It was just, I mean, the like I said, the chemistry was just on point, and whether you were fortunate enough to be there in the arena, because my God, being there, actually seeing that live.
No kidding.
Jesus Christ! I mean, that'd be like you'd put that on your, CV, or like, I was there kind of thing. Like, where were you when you saw the Lucha from Space LAX? It's like, holy crap! Like, you're such a lucky fan. Like, it's that good. But watching it at home as well, just the television presentation, it was just, like I said, it was just amazing. It was like a pay-per-view main event on TV, which is what I think is great about Impact as well, is that they treated the kind of going off points like from this match, but the actual TV program is treated just as equally as the pay-per-views are, because the pay-per-views are infrequent, so they invest time into the TV show, and you get so many amazing matches on the actual TV show as well. Impact itself, and that was one of them. I mean, that it was just, the other thing I would like to touch on with the match as well was that I love the fact that I think it was kind of that although they kind of the pace of it was very fast, and the selling wasn't necessarily a lot of like sort of smart marks. What I was saying, they didn't sell whatever, they didn't sell this.
I got it. I'm gonna hit that after this, so you just keep going. I don't want to interrupt you.
Oh no, I was gonna say was that like that's the international side of it though as well. This is lucha. This is traditional lucha libre. This is how it works, and that's if you want to see that in condensed form, that's what it was, and that's why it was so exciting. And it's like, I can understand criticism for certain things, but I think, just that one element as well for me, I think made it even more of a privilege to watch, was that it was celebrating the lucha libre style and heritage, and it was like a traditional lucha libre tag match, what I've seen in like from videotapes and things from Mexico, and it was in Mexico as well, so it just felt so special in that regard as well, that you were being, able to see something. It wasn't like Pentagon and Phoenix were trying to do the American style. It was they were showcasing their traditional lucha libre style with LAX as well, who obviously have grounding from Kona, and it just it was just a 15-minute amazing display of just celebration of wrestling. Basically, it was for me. It was just a celebration of why it was like an apex of why it's just so good. Triumph on all fronts.
So just your point of the this tired diatribe of no selling from people who I guess think they know wrestling, and again I'm not trying to be negative or derivative or whatever, but a lot of that you see from the domestic viewing audience, because they're used to the WWE style of matches, and we can all agree, without being negative, that WWE style is vanilla compared to what you will see in New Japan, which is extremely fast paced, and Lucha Libre, which is a whole different style of psychology in terms of a match, and that's what I feel like. If you were never introduced into wrestling and you watch this thing, you're probably going to think this is a tremendous match. If you've been only watching, we'll say, WWE or American style wrestling for 20 plus years, or if you're goddamn Jim Cornette, you probably hate this match because you're, I don't know, right? Because it's not, Jerry Lawler throwing punches for 20 minutes, or it's not that, it's something they're not used to, right? For myself, because in Winnipeg we have such a strong independent scene, I go to a ton of CWE shows, and they are always bringing in wrestling talent from the States, from overseas. They bring in top Ring of Honor stars all the time. For instance, we just had Tommy Dreamer here back in January, but we are so privileged here that we're exposed to so many different styles of wrestling.
Yeah.
So I'm watching this match, and I'm blown away by the work rate, which shout out to Jimmy, the work rate nerds would love this one. But to me, if people are telling me that, or if your narrative is that there's no selling, then I don't think that you know what you're looking at, because the psychology and selling in Lucha Libre style is far different than anything that you will see in America, which is obviously far different than anything you'll see in New Japan. I often see criticism of New Japan's product of, this Okada guy, he no-sells everything, Naito just, he's a goof in the ring, he no-sells everything. But it's not that he's no-selling, it's part of it is their character. Yeah. Part of it is, if you're watching the course of the match and, Okada hits his Rainmaker and the guy kicks out, but what you're not paying attention to is the lead up to that. How gassed is Okada? How worn down is he? And he hits the move, and it's not at 100%. And on commentary, they do a great job of talking about that, right? And then it's the kick out. So if you're not paying attention to the little things and the nuances and that style, if you're not familiar with it, then you're going to look at that and go, well, this is fucking garbage, because they do 80 finishers and 30 super kicks and whatever the fuck, and then you're Jim Cornette, eating a fucking triple cheeseburger. But for fans like yourself and myself, who have that international kind of exposure and flavor, you're watching a match like this, and you can read the translation between styles, and you can watch this and go, man, like, what a celebration! What an absolute gem of a match to showcase this style to a public who may otherwise not have any exposure to it.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is that the comparison I would put it to in terms of the match from when I watched it, instantly was Rey Mysterio Jr. at the time versus Eddie Guerrero from Halloween Havoc in 1997. Just again the celebration of the Lucha Libre style, but that was on American soil. But just the build up, just the stakes, the big deal with Ray's costume and Phoenix's costume. It's like, but I mean, again, just the innovation of the moves. It was like, that's how you can tell this is a big deal. We're going to go out there and we're going to do something no one's ever seen before. And they did that. Some of the moves in that match I'd never seen before, which, like, in 20 plus years is quite a hard thing to do. But it's like, and again, everything meant something. There was no wasted motion. It wasn't like 15 super kicks, what didn't then like lead to, it wasn't just like looking for cheap pops. It wasn't any of that. It was just, it was so well thought out. It was so structured. It was from beginning to middle to finish. So from when they entered the ring to when they had the match, from when they handed them the Lucha Brothers the belts, LAX. It was just a brilliantly crafted story, which, was great the first time around. But again, like the sequel, it's a bit like The Godfather Part 1 and then The Godfather Part 2. Thought this was good. It's like, this is even better. It was just, again, it was just phenomenal, And again, I'm trying not to give things away from the match itself, because I feel, again, if I say certain spots or certain things, what happened, then it kind of spoils it. I think it's one of those things where you have to watch it to, like, words can't do justice to just how they actually worked in the ring, and it was just beautiful, just a beautiful match and experience, viewing experience. Very rare to see in the pro wrestling industry or any sport, to be honest, but they managed it, and I feel hugely privileged as a wrestling fan to have seen it, and to have enjoyed it at the time as well, when it happened or was aired.
Can't agree more. Like you said, you almost don't want to, analyze and go over certain things in the match, because, you almost want it presented without context. Obviously, we're providing some context, but you don't want to really spoil the moment, and moments are what that made, or what made that match really, truly incredible.
Yeah.
Just kind of a wrap up here. Moving forward in 2019, is there a couple of things that you can point to, either direction wise or character wise, that you would like to see out of Impact Wrestling? Whether it's maybe one or two people that you really want to see highlighted, maybe it's pay-per-view structure, maybe it's television taping structure. Is there a couple of things that you're really looking forward to seeing and really want to see out of the company in 2019?
I'd really like to see, as I said earlier, Ethan Page being highlighted a lot more, because I've seen a lot of his work on the independents, and I know how good he is and how versatile he is, and I hope that he is able to, showcase just how, great he is as a worker. I'd really like to see more of the Radicals. I think Zachary Wentz, he's the one I'd want to see a lot more of, because I think I've seen a lot of Dexter and Xavier, and there's been a lot of Trey Miguel recently on TV, but I'd really like to see more of his name's gone again now, because I wasn't thinking.
Zachary Wentz.
Zachary Wentz, sorry. Just because I think I think he's got a really unique moveset, and he's really exciting to watch. I'd like to see Tessa Blanchard go more into sort of the crazed kind of mode, not so the extreme of Eddie Edwards, but I'd like to see her kind of trying to claim back the world title, the Knockouts title, and again, like the LAX, just hold it forever and ever, and then make it a big deal again when she loses it. And I think the taping structure is really good. I think the venues they're choosing are really good. I think the presentation's great and on point. I think they are doing good things with structuring out the pay-per-views as well. So, each match is given a lot of time, and each match is, presented to the fullest quality it can, and, everything flows well. There has been certain points where things have not flowed as well, but that's sort of, part of the learning process. And I think just go, if it ain't broke up, fix it. It's working well at the moment. It's, been working last year, and I just want to see them, going ahead with the momentum they've already got, and, hopefully coming back to the UK at some point to record some Impact tapings, and to, keep the international partners coming in. So I'd like to see, they've had Puma King, who I only found out about last year. They've had, Taichi Ishimori, who came in last year. I'd like to see some more Japanese guys, because I think they're another aspect another demographic which could be showcased really well, not just in the X division, but also in the heavyweight division. And I think it's just an exciting time where, I think a lot could happen, and it's just all going well at the moment. And, with what happened on Friday with that Lucha Brothers tag team match against LAX, the momentum couldn't be any higher for them to springboard off now. I think that's kind of where they've worked towards, and they can go to higher things. Excuse me.
Yeah, you will get no disagreement almost with anything you said there. Just like you said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think the way that they're structuring television, the way that they have matches, and the way they are promoting to the international market specifically is the way to go. And I, as well, would like to see them do some tapings in the UK. I think that market is just starved right now for big time professional wrestling. And they did the one night only last year, went really well. So I'd like to see them go back and expand that market for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's exciting. They're becoming finally a global or an international company. I wouldn't say a global company. They're becoming an international company. They're embracing the international styles and international wrestlers of the world, and they're doing it in the right way, where they're not they're actually showcasing people, and they're putting time into people. They're not just getting people there to tick some kind of box that we've got someone from Japan, we've got someone from Mexico, where we've got someone from the USA, UK. It's like everybody's got a reason to be there. So it's it's great.
So Steven, if anybody, and why the hell wouldn't you, by the way, if you're a wrestling fan, if anybody wants to read your material, where can they find your written blogs?
My written work is part of the Wrestling Estate, so www.thewrestlingestate.com, and you can read my reviews of some Ring of Honor shows from last year, along with a couple of other interesting articles. Like I said, I mainly concentrate on Ring of Honor and New Japan, and you can also hit me up on Twitter. I put a lot of interesting tweets up about things I find, or think matches I see, or opinions I've got on. Really active on Twitter, so my Twitter handle is at SteeJ215, so I'm part of like I said, the Wrestling Estate as well. We're on Twitter as well, so it's at the Wrestling Estate. So Est, EST, so at the Wrestling Est. So it's been an absolute privilege to be on the podcast, and such a fantastic conversation about anything and everything to do with Impact Wrestling, and I'd really enjoyed today. So thank you very much.
We're gonna have you back on for sure. I'm assuming you're game for that one.
Oh, definitely, yeah. By all means, if you'll have me again.
Oh yeah, no, this is a horrible experience. I'll never have you on again. Could you imagine? Oh God.
We're gonna do a Vince Russo in a Jim Cornette, and we're gonna do one of those.
Oh my God, yeah.
Where we start having court orders sent across the pond.
Yeah, who's if I swear to God, if one of those shows up my mailbox, brother, there's gonna be some hell to pay. So until I have Steven on for next time, I'm going to include all of his social media links on the first tweet in regards to this podcast. Steven, thank you very much for joining me today. Tonight, your time actually, and we will definitely be having you on again to pick your brain.
Great, thank you very much for having me again, and it's a privilege, and thank you for sharing my tweets as well, and I look forward to the next time when we can chat about Impact.
Sounds great. Make sure you follow Steven on all social media. Make sure you give his blogs a read for sure on the Wrestling Estate. Boom.
Thank you very much.
All right, so before we get out here for tonight, just have some breaking news on Impact Wrestling and their distribution company. So this came out today that Dubai-based production and distribution house Creative Venture has inked a deal with New York-based global media brand distribution advisory Kings Media Highway to exclusively represent them in distributing entertainment from Impact Wrestling in MENA. Now that's the Middle East and Northern Africa kind of area of broadcasting. The distribution exclusively covers all platforms, including linear television and over-the-top platforms. So speaking about the deal to Broadcast Pro Me, that's where I got this information from. Bada Fatou, who's the managing director and co-owner of Creative Venture, said, "Wrestling is a well-loved sport, and Impact Wrestling already has a huge share of market in this regional online. On just YouTube outside the US, it attracts around 38 million monthly views. It has more than 1.8 million subscribers with more than 1.4 billion total views on platforms, and that is according to YouTube channel analytics released in October of last year, 2018. At present, there is only WWE here, and it sits between two broadcasters. We have the rest of the spectrum. It is time to offer more wrestling entertainment options to a wider network of broadcasters in the region because Impact Wrestling is very competitive and youth-orientated. It has a lot of fresh content and has very high production values." Now, key markets for Impact Wrestling's YouTube channel, obviously outside of the US, include India, UK, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, Vietnam, Pakistan, Malaysia, and my home country of Canada. Now, social media metrics suggest that Impact Wrestling already has a reach of more than 60 million in that MENA region and over 650 million globally. Now, statistics from the wrestling promotion company show the breakdown. So Saudi Arabia, just from YouTube, has about 24.5 million, and Facebook is 1 million people that they are targeting from this, we'll say, promotion. Egypt has about 6.6 million on YouTube and about 2.6 from Facebook. Iraq has 3.2 million and Facebook over 400,000. The United Arab Emirates, YouTube 11.7 million, Facebook is 750,000. Qatar, YouTube 1.5 million. Bahrain has about 650,000 on YouTube. Kuwait does about 2.1 million. Morocco does about 900,000, and Algeria does about 750,000. That's on YouTube. So although the distribution of sports content is a new venture for the Dubai-based production house, the role is not new to Fatou, who has served as head of sports content distribution when working with TWT in Beirut before. So essentially what you're seeing now is this whole, we'll say, trend of people saying that Impact is a dying brand and a dying company and blah, blah, blah. If they were a dying company, then there wouldn't be production and networking companies that are wanting to bring them into global market distribution facilities and markets, such as the one that they are being introduced to here. So what does this all mean for Impact Wrestling? Well, obviously now they are further expanding their global reach, and you just heard in my conversation with Steven that they being Impact Wrestling have done such a great job of expanding and involving the international market. So Canada, Mexico, UK, Pakistan, India in general, I should say. Now you're involving all these other state broadcasters. This is only going to further the reach of Impact Wrestling and further their, we'll say, viewership numbers. Now, once again, I know that everybody's going to point to the United States numbers, which are non-existent right now. Nobody really knows how the show is performing on Pursuit, although metrics would suggest that they are not doing very much better than they were doing at the end of their pop run. Now, however, and a lot of people have a problem with this, not me specifically, a lot of people fail to realize and fail to respect the fact that Impact Wrestling has done such a great job of focusing on their international audience. countries like Canada, like Mexico, who have a major market share, like UK, who you just heard Steven talk about his experience and how he views Impact Wrestling in the United Kingdom. All of these international markets combined who want wrestling and companies who want wrestling on their television screens want to invest in Impact Wrestling. They want this alternative to the WWE because there is such a large market share and a large volume of people who want to see the product. That is the number one thing to keep in mind here. You have countries, people, individuals, broadcasters, partners who want to see the product. 2019 is going to be a benchmark year, in my opinion, for Impact Wrestling. Domestically, not so much. Internationally, and that is the big number and big area that they can really capitalize on. For all of this talk that we hear about AEW, what they may or may not have in terms of a domestic broadcasting partner, they have nothing to almost nothing in regards to an international television distribution or marketing deal. This is where Impact Wrestling stands out against competitors such as, although they aren't really one right now because they're still not a distributed company, AEW, MLW, Ring of Honor, CMLL, New Japan, etc. This is where they can really make their mark, is in the international market. So I'm very excited to see where this deal takes Impact Wrestling. And I'm also very excited to see all of you stick with us with the Six-Sided Podcast moving forward in this year, 2019. This was the second show of the year. Obviously, last week, everybody heard the show with Trent. Thank you very much, Trent, for joining me last week. Thank you, Steven, for joining me this week. And if you want to be a part of the program, very easy. All you got to do is shoot me a tweet at 6_podcast. Also, make sure you follow us there on Twitter. Send me a message. You can also email me at any time at 6sidepod@gmail.com. Please make sure that you are subscribing on YouTube, youtube.com/c/6sidedpodcast. We are also just recently on Twitch, twitch.tv/taxman16. That's TAXMAN16. I will be changing the name later on. At first, I didn't know if I was going to be putting stuff on there. Now I've changed my mind, so you can follow that Twitch stream. I'm uploading episodes of the TNA Impact in Reverse series on there, so definitely want to follow that. And once again, if you are listening to this on YouTube, then I would also help that you would subscribe or download this podcast on any of the other various platforms that it's available on. Google Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Deezer, etc., etc., etc. Once again, anywhere you buy, trade, steal, barter, or view, listen to, soil yourself listening to, whatever your thing is, your favorite podcast, you can find us on there. Please rate and review and download. And while you're doing that, please make sure to download the brand new Pulse Podcasting app. You can search in iOS or Android, Pulse Podcast Network. Download that app. It's free. Everybody's favorite price. And make sure that you plug a couple of listens to the Six-Sided Podcast, because I want to try and really make sure that our footprint is large and noticeable on that platform. So even if you catch us on YouTube or one of the other various streaming sites, I hope that you will use a little bit of that megabyte storage on your phone, download the Pulse Podcasting app, and give us a listen to the Six-Sided Podcast on that app. So for myself, the Taxman, for my guest, Steven, for my kids that are waking up right now, this is the Taxman saying, take care of yourselves and each other. Good night, everyone.